This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so hopefully you're able to see my screen because I've shared it. A quick confirmation will be useful for me.
Yeah, I can able to see.
Great. So let me share my PowerPoint presentation on Azure platform. Let me put it in a presentation mode. So Microsoft Azure is basically a cloud computing solution from Microsoft where the remote servers, storage, and various other type of resources can be accessed by organizations worldwide. And this kind of a remote accessing management has a lot of advantages, lot of benefits, because of which organizations worldwide are increasingly going on adopting cloud solutions. So you can see on your screen the definition which is given by Microsoft is a cloud computing is basically a delivery of computing services, which means you will be able to access servers, storages, databases, networking softwares, including analytics and various business intelligence platforms also over the internet. The practice of usaging all these, what you see on your screen, over the internet is basically what we call it as the cloud and the cloud solutions. All right. Needless to say, this is going to provide us with a great benefit, great advantages, in the sense that you have an extreme, advantage of cost saving, agility. Not to mention, there are many other advantages such as security, data governance, and the commitment from Microsoft, which are called as service level agreements. All these are going to be great advantages if you are adopting the cloud solutions. Okay. Now, whenever we talk about cloud, let's say, immediately we need to put in our minds that there is somewhere in some geographical location there is a data center, and a data center can be imagined as a collection of vast array of servers which are running all business critical applications, and all these servers have their own storages, backup facilities, redundancy facilities, high availability facilities, and all of them are networked together by means of network connectivity devices such as routers, switches, and various other kind of connectivity devices. You can imagine a data center is a collection of all these things. So when we say cloud, it is nothing but the provisioning of these remote servers along with their storages, network connectivity devices over the internet is what we can imagine as a cloud. So now if you are an organization, if you are a company who is looking for a cloud solution, what you simply need to do is you need to simply lease or borrow these servers, these physical data centers, and the entire infrastructure for the benefit of your own organization, for your company, without having these data centers physically set up in your own company. So therefore, you are looking at a very cost effective solution, and also Microsoft Azure guarantees that there is a lot of security available to you. And again, security we are going to talk about elaborately in our future sessions, where security can be something which is a shared responsibility, which means part of the security is yours, that is the company's, and part of the security is provided by Microsoft itself. So now that we have understood what a physical data center is, we can have a very quick look at some of the evolutions of data centers, and you can see the generation 1, generation 2, and so on, the evolution of data centers. Today very advanced data centers are provided by Microsoft, across nearly 54 regions across the globe in nearly 140 countries. Okay, so which means there is a great amount of presence of data centers of Microsoft across the globe. Organizations worldwide can really leverage upon these data centers. They can start their business operations directly in whichever region they choose, in whichever region their customers are present, whichever regions are most feasible for their businesses. The customers can choose those business regions, and then the data centers in those regions will be now ready to serve your business requirements. Any questions so far?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. And you can see some of the data centers are amazingly in very odd places also, like for example underwater or somewhere in the mid of the oceans also. So you can imagine the extent to which the data centers have grown or evolved. Okay. Now, whenever we talk about Azure, the primary thing to remember here is Azure is essentially a shared responsibility, which means, as you can see on your screen, typical organizations until quite lately, the entire infrastructure, including the network, storage, servers, virtualization, the middleware, the runtime applications, and data, was entirely managed and owned by organizations themselves. That is what you can see in light blue colors on premises, the first stack that you see on your screen. But when you adopt cloud solution, there are certain services which are bucketed under infrastructure as a service. In this particular bucketing, you will be seeing that part of the infrastructure is owned by Microsoft itself, such as networking, storage, servers, and virtualization. You can imagine that these are the components which are running on a typical data center in some geographical region. Now, in infrastructure as a service, you as an organization have the access up to your own operating system. You have the access level up to the operating system. You have the management up to middleware, runtime, data, and applications. These are the areas where you need to focus as a business entity. The rest of it is taken care by Microsoft Azure itself. This type of offering from Microsoft is called as infrastructure as a service. Now, if you are a cloud administrator for a company, your responsibility would be setting up of all virtual machines which are part of the infrastructure as a service. Setting up of a virtual machine not only includes setting up computing services, but also organizing whatever the operating system that is required, the middleware, the runtime, the data, and the applications. All these are coming under the responsibility of the cloud administration. Any question over here?
Nothing. Right.
Okay. Now, in the other part, if you see the third stack, which is platform as a service, you can see that even up to the operating system, middleware, and runtime, these components are also provided by the Microsoft Azure itself, letting you focus only on your own business on your own business criticality, which means you don't have to worry on which virtual machine, on which operating system your business applications are going to run on. You don't have to worry about that. Those are taken care by Microsoft itself. All you need to do is only consider the platform as a service applications. One thing that readily comes to my mind when we talk about platform as a service is there are something which are called as function apps, and there is something called as app services. So both function apps and app services are the offerings which are considered as platform as a service. Whereas compute services such as virtual machines, they come under the category of infrastructure as a service, where your organization has an access up to the operating system, which operating system you must choose to install on a virtual machine, and all other factors. Finally, the entire stack is owned and provided by Microsoft itself, and that is the fourth stack on your screen, that is software as a service, where the pre-built applications from Microsoft or from some other third party can be accessed and by you, because they are already pre-built. So you don't even have to worry about the software development kits which are needed to build these applications. You don't even have to worry about that. The pre-built applications have to be simply shared by your organization on a pay-as-you-go basis. The pay-as-you-go basis also applies for infrastructure as a service, PaaS, as well as for SaaS. Office 365, Dynamics CRM are some of the classic examples of software as a service. In our own environment, we are very much familiar with Facebook or LinkedIn. These applications are actually software as a service that we simply use without having to bother about where these applications are being hosted, from which server you are going to get these applications, which Facebook server is your account is present on. You don't have to worry about all these things. You simply use these software services provided by the Facebook. So now the summary of this particular screen is Azure is provided as a shared responsibility. Let's move on to the next one, unless you have some questions here. Okay. Since I don't see any questions coming from the participants, let's see some of the classic benefits of going for Microsoft Azure. Of course, the speed with which you can set up the environment on cloud, the speed with which the business can set up their companies on cloud is very fast. And this comes under agility and also global presence. As I was mentioning, that Microsoft has its data centers scattered across various regions of the globe. Therefore, you can take your business whichever is closest to your customers. You also have an integrated development environment if you are looking for developing solutions on Microsoft Azure. And you also have end-to-end delivery pipeline as a part of this development process. You also have a great benefit of superior disaster recovery, which means Microsoft offers you a recovery plan in case if something happens to your data or to your servers on which your business critical applications are running. Microsoft provides you with a superior disaster recovery plans, from where the recovery from any natural calamity or planned disaster or unplanned disasters, not planned, but unplanned disasters which may occur, unforeseen events which may occur that may lead to some kind of a disaster. The speed with which you can recover from these disasters is very, very high. Therefore, your business continuity does not suffer, or your business continuity does not get interrupted. There is also a pretty flexible expenditure, which means you only have to pay for the resources that you use, and at any given point of time, if you find a particular resource need not be running on cloud, you have the flexibility to shut it down or bring it down, so that you are not paying unnecessarily for a resource which is not required to run. There is also a huge amount of enterprise security, and the way Microsoft provisions this is called as defense in depth, which means it provides a layered security mechanism starting from the physical security. Your data is in the innermost ring of this concentric circles in which different layers are offering different types of security mechanisms to you. For example, physical data center security is one of the foremost securities offered by Microsoft, and you as a company also has a responsibility to build up your own security principles. You can use high level security protocols using authentication, authorizations. At the same time, there are various other security plans that you can take into consideration, such as encryptions, single sign-on, and many of these things about which I will speak as we go into our future sessions. Microsoft also provides you with a compliance which are part of the data governance. That means you can really set up great compliances and ensure that all the organization or all the employees of your organization are adhering to these guidelines. Once you set up a compliance at a specific level, these guidelines are enforced so that your entire organization has a proper data governance in place. Again, I will talk about these compliances and these regulations in our future sessions. So these are some of the benefits, as I said, for your Azure. And as you can see on your screen, there are more than 140 countries, or about 140 countries in which the data centers are present, and these are actually in 54 regions. According to Microsoft, a region is you can consider as a geographical location on the globe where at least one data center is present, and perhaps more than one data center can be also present, in which these multiple data centers are interconnected with each other by low latency networks. The advantage of having this interconnected data centers in a typical geographical region is, if a particular data center gets affected for some reason, automatically your data is available in another data center so that your business continuity plan does not get affected adversely. Okay, so I have also given you an idea what is a geographical region in the parlance of Microsoft Azure. Any questions you have until so far? Okay, I'm not too sure whether there is yeah,
Yes,
Krishna,
go ahead. Yeah, yeah, you
any
can go.
questions, sir?
Yeah,
Yes.
please go. Please go ahead.
Okay, Krishna, I want you to be little louder, please. You can bring the microphone closer so that I can hear you, because your voice is coming very feebly. Okay, so since you said that, we can continue. Now, this is basically what we call it as the Azure Learning Path. And as you can see, in the Azure Learning Path, we have a different category of certifications aimed at different designations. And what we are going to focus on is Microsoft Azure Administrator, which is AZ103. So you can see that uh, definitely no matter which certification you take, there is one certification which is very common to all of them, and that is AZ900. And this AZ900 basically focuses on Azure fundamentals. Under the Azure fundamentals, you will be able to see, you will have to have a skill set regarding the answering of queries regarding cloud computing principles, the cost management, the security management, the data governance, and the monitoring principles which are used in Microsoft, and many other aspects will be tested as part of the Azure fundamentals, which means you will have to know basically what these are, which I have just mentioned now, including the security aspects of it. Okay, what type of security principles are implemented on Microsoft, what is meant by layered security, which I have been just discussing with you, and what is meant by defense in depth, and how you, along with Microsoft, together you build up a very secure environment for your company. And that also includes data governance, where all kind of security compliances can be enforced. And also you talk about Azure fundamentals, also talks about service level agreements which are provided by Microsoft. Service level agreements are basically the commitments which Microsoft offers to the customers or the organizations who have the requirement to access Azure resources on cloud, such saying that what kind of a resilience, continuity, availability are provided by Microsoft, so that there is Microsoft always makes an endeavor, makes an effort to ensure that the resources which you are using for your own business purposes on cloud, these resources are available 99.99% of time, with maybe a fraction there may be a downtime for these resources. It may be due to planned maintenance, it may be due to some unplanned events that may occur, but otherwise the service level agreements are something, the documents which are provided by Microsoft, which guarantee that the resources are always up and running, and so that your business does not get impacted. All these are part of the Azure fundamentals and are tested under AZ900 course. When it comes to Microsoft Azure administration, this also includes AZ fundamentals. AZ900 is also included in this testing format of it. Apart from that, we do a lot of deep dive into building up of this infrastructure as a service, as I was telling you, where you really have to set up the entire business platform, starting from the virtual machines, setting up of virtual networks, setting up of subnets, setting up of virtual network interface cards, which are called as NICs, and many other resources are set up by the cloud administrators, so that the rest of the business developers, analytics or analysts, they can make use of this infrastructure to further their business requirements. And this also includes setting up of monitoring activities of all the resources. When I say setting up of monitoring activities, means every resource that is deployed on cloud can be monitored to check its health and to optimize its performance, and to get a deep insight into performance by means of some kind of analytics. So analytics are very much part of monitoring, where as a cloud administrator, you should be able to understand a lot of metrics which are generated by, or lot of signals which are generated by various resources. And these resources, when they are monitored, they generate various signals. These signals are then captured by the administrator to check their health and see whether a particular resource is optimized, or whether it is underperforming, or whether it is overperforming, and what is the situation exactly. Apart from the monitoring activities which are part of administrator course, we will also be focusing on setting up of security, and this security can be in the form of Azure Active Directory services, where identity access management, IAM, becomes one of the focal points. So we only provide, during this Azure Active Directory is a very in-depth platform provided on Microsoft Cloud, Azure Cloud, where cloud administrators can manage the identities of the company. When I say identities, what I mean by that is user accounts, group accounts, what type of security, what type of privileges, what type of permissions these users will be having for various resources they are going to access. Everything is controlled by cloud administrators. Needless to say, this is one of your principal activities on cloud. as a cloud administrator. The security aspect does not stop here itself. The security aspect can be taken further by going for single sign-on or multi-factor authentications, MFA, by using encryptions and by using public and private keys for encrypting the data so that your data is very secure on the hard disks. Even if your hard disks are compromised, absolutely there will be no problem because the entire data on the hard disks are encrypted. So these are also some of the focal points of Microsoft Cloud Administration and many more. Okay. So hopefully by now you would have had some kind of a notion as to what exactly is involved in the cloud administration. So unless you have any other question, we are going to move to the next segment. So now it comes boils down to the actual demonstration that I want to now give it to you. So just let me take you to a different screen now. One second, please. Okay. So I'm going to open my browser now. Hope you're able to see this. And let me
Yes.
open my also. One second, please. Now, in order to manage the cloud resources, okay, Microsoft actually provides three tools for you, three mechanisms for you. One is called as the portal. The second one, I hope, okay, just a minute, this is typo error. One is the portal. The second one is the PowerShell. And the third one is command line interface, which is basically a DOS based kind of a platform. If you are familiar with DOS prompt, and you know the DOS has been a very old legacy application that has been going on, and the command line interface is something which works on the lines of Microsoft DOS, provides you with a command prompt where administrators will type or enter many types of commands which are related with the management of Azure services, management and deployment of various services, but using command prompts actually. If you come to the first one, which is Microsoft Portal, the Microsoft Portal is basically a graphical user interface, which means in order to get into the portal platform, all you need to do is you need to simply open a browser and enter portal.azure.com, and once you do this, you are able to get an entry into the portal, and then you will have to go through the authentication procedure. This also is the same whether you are opening a PowerShell or whether using a command line interface. The authentication is something which is nothing but a user account which is eventually tied up with your subscription. So a subscription is, you can consider in Microsoft parlance terminology, as a kind of a container through which various Azure resources are provisioned to your company or to your organization or to your to an individual self. Okay, whatever may be the case, you need to have an account, and the account is eventually linked with a subscription. There are different types of subscription types that you can take, you can make use of, and these subscription types will differ based on whether you are going for an individual or whether you are a company. If you are a company with critical business dependency on Microsoft Azure Cloud, a specific type of a subscription would be most suitable. If you are an individual who just want to do some learning, some training, then there is a free subscription which is available to you, which Microsoft provides. And this free subscription is available for a period of 1 month. And there is about $200 free credits which are offered by Microsoft. And when I say $200, it is approximately something around 1,350 Indian rupees, where worth of these services can be accessed by you absolutely free of cost, and there is no additional charges over here. There is nothing that you need to pay because these are free credits which are provided by Microsoft. But once this 1 month period is over, then you may have to upgrade your subscription to pay as you go methodology, where there is no upfront cost involved in it, but as you start utilizing the resources, then there is a cost that will be happening in the background, and eventually on a monthly billing cycle, you will be getting a billing which you have to pay to the Microsoft based on the amount of services that you have used. So organizations will have a different mechanisms of going for subscriptions. And again, I'll be talking elaborately about the subscriptions at a later point of time. But as of now, let's go into this. As I said, there are 3 tools available to you through which you can deploy and manage the cloud services. First of all, let us go into the portal.azure.com. So let me open my browser here, and where I will type portal.azure.com. And you can see immediately I'm taken to the account. I'll have to pick an account for myself and enter a password. So, and once I am logged in successfully, you will be able to see that there is a landing page where you land initially, and you're also placed in your own home directory. And this is the home directory in which Azure automatically places you once you have a successful login. So this is basically called as a tenant, because you can see I'm using an account. If you're a company such as an HCL or Wipro or Microsoft or some other company through which you are logging in, and that company becomes the tenant. So Azure supports, needless to say, multi-tenancy, which means multiple companies can utilize cloud services independent of the others. Each company does not interfere with the other company's usages, and so there is a watertight compartment or watertight separation between these various tenancies. And as you can see also on my screen, there is a subscription which I'm using, which is called as a demo pay as you go. This is what I was talking about. And once I click on this demo subscription, if I want to do a little more deep diving into it and see what exactly is involved in this, you can see that the demo pay as you go subscription screen blade which opens in front of you, and you can also see what is the cost incurred so far in this under this particular subscription. Now let me tell you something, that whether you are using a portal, whether you are using command line interface, or whether you are using PowerShell, these are the 3 mechanisms through which administrative tasks are performed by the administrators. They are all, none of these tools that you see on your screen can directly access the cloud resources. Let me reiterate this point. Suppose I want to access a virtual machine. In the sense, I am one of the cloud users belonging to a specific company, and I want to access a particular virtual machine on cloud, either using the portal or using the command line interface or using CLI. I cannot directly access any of the cloud resources. I have to do this accessing through a component which is called as ARM ARM. ARM stands for, let me put it here, ARM stands for Azure Resources Manager. This is a very important point to remember. Azure Resources Manager or Resource Manager, ARM. And this is the kind of a core component which directly has an interface with your various cloud resources. These various cloud resources can be, as you can see here, virtual machines, or they can be app services or function apps, Kubernetes services, whatever the resources may be, all resource accessing happens via this only. So, having said this, coming back to my own environment where I'm showing you currently a demo pay-as-you-go subscription, I can see the cost analysis that I can do very simply and see which resource has incurred how much amount of cost. At the same time, there is also another analytics that is involved here, where you can see the current cost is 37.96 INR, which is being shown as an area chart. And Azure also makes a forecast based on my previous usage, what could be my future cost, that is also predicted by Azure. And this gives me a very good idea eventually in every monthly billing cycle with what amount I'm going to end up paying to Microsoft. I can have a very good idea on this. Okay. So this type of a forecasting along with the cost analysis can be done at the subscription levels that you see over here. Any questions here?
No, you can.
Okay. Okay, fine. So now that there are no questions over here, let us do a little more look at the type of subscriptions which are basically offered. And before I do that, let me show you a small hierarchy. If you want to set up a company or if you want to organize your resources, let me put it over here. If you want to organize your company resources on cloud, then basically you can adopt a specific hierarchy that is called as a management groups. Under the management groups, you can have subscriptions, subscription or subscriptions. Under the subscriptions, you can have one or more what are called as resource groups. And the resource groups themselves will have one or more resources bundled under them. So assume that you are adopting cloud solution now and you want to organize your resources very effectively in a very structured way. The way you can think of as a cloud administrator to do this is you can initially create a management group, which is the highest level of hierarchy. This is the highest level in the scope. Okay, and I will tell you what is the importance of that. Then a single management group can have one or more subscription under it, which means suppose your company has multiple divisions under it. Let us say there is a IT division and there is a finance division. Let's make only let us take only two of these divisions. Then you may plan to go for separate subscriptions for each of these divisions. So you will have a separate subscription for IT and another subscription for your finance department, so that the resources can be easily tracked, the resource cost billing can be very easily managed, tracked, and then a proper billing can be done for the owner, who is eventually the person or the entity who is going to pay up for the cost. So a single management group can have multiple subscriptions under it. And then each of these subscriptions in turn can have multiple resource groups. So what are resource groups basically? A resource group can be very roughly linked with what can be called as a folder. Just as all similar files you are going to, or all related files you are going to put under one single folder for easy management, in the same way, all related resources that you want to bundle them together and manage very effectively, you can put them under one single resource group. That way, you will know which resource is being used for what purposes and what is the cost involved for managing that resource, utilization of that resource. Everything can be very structuredly managed by cloud administrators. So a single subscription can have one or more resource groups, and each resource group in turn can have one or more resources under it, but all of these resources under a resource group will be related with each other in some or the other way. Okay, why I am telling this kind of a hierarchy is because whenever you want to implement any security policies, whenever you want to implement any data governance compliances, you can think of implementing them at the management group levels. So any security policy, for example, that has been applied at the management group level will automatically flow down to all the subscriptions under it, and all the under resource groups under it, and all the resources under it, so that you do not have to worry about at every level the same kind of a security policy. If it needs to be implemented, you can imagine it may become a very tough management task for you. But if you have a hierarchy like this, then you can easily implement a security policy or a compliance enforcement at a particular higher level, and automatically the enforcement can be done at all the lower levels. Unless, of course, you have a specific requirement where you may want to implement a specific security policy or a data governance at a project level. When you want to do at a project level, then you may not have to implement at the management group level, but think of implementing at some resource group which belongs to a specific project, and then those policies will now be only affecting that particular resource group and those resources only under that particular resource group. May I have some kind of an acknowledgement, please?
Hello, Ravi. Hello,
As I
hello.
said, Krishna, your voice is very feeble, and if you are planning to ask any questions, then you need to um, go for a larger volume. And I am not getting any response from Prakash. I hope, Prakash, you are quite okay with this until now.
Yeah, it's good. I just want to know, or in what way is differed from a resource group as well as a security group in AWS.
What way?
It is resource group is differed from security group, which is an AWS.
Well, I'm not that much familiar with AWS, Prakash. Okay.
Okay.
But from my
Okay.
perspective, I mean, a resource group is basically
Mm.
a collection of all related resource which shares same kind of a life cycle. Let me give you an example, perhaps that may answer your question. Let's say you are in a testing environment where you want to test and deploy some VMs, virtual
Mm.
machines, maybe 10 or 15 VMs, and you want to deploy some web applications on these 10 VMs. These are all for testing purposes only. And at the same time, these web applications also need to access a backend database server. So now in this entire deployment, you are having 10 VMs on which 10 instances of web applications are will be running, and these web applications will be accessing one database server, maybe a Microsoft SQL server or a Oracle server or some other server. Now, all these virtual machines along with the database server, they share a common life cycle. That means they will be active only as long as the testing environment is available. Once these are tested successfully and as per your requirements, then maybe you would like to dismantle them and return these resources back to cloud, or not return, but basically you want to dismantle these resources. So you
Okay.
see, you have a mechanism wherein resources which share some kind of a commonality between them, for example same life cycle, they can be all bundled under one resource group. Okay,
Okay. Right.
suppose there is no concept of resource group, what would happen now? If you see in a cloud, let me show you, let me
Does it mean anyone can access you without the resource group?
anyone.
Can access, say, public can access the VM if I did not configure a resource group.
No, no,
Straight
no,
away
it
they
is
can.
not like that. It is not like that. See, for example, if I go to all resources, okay, let me show
Okay.
you. See, there is, can you see on my screen all resources?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, suppose if I click on this. So currently, there are no resources available because we have not built anything. Our slate is quite clean. But if you see a live environment, you will be able to see n number of resources, virtual machines, database servers, n number of the list will be here. From here, it will be very difficult for you to identify which resource is being used for what department, for what purpose. Unless you have some kind of a labeling that you are doing, some kind of a consistent naming conventions that you are doing, right? You will not know which virtual machine is being used for what purposes. It is
Okay.
like saying, without any folders, if I store 1000 files in a C drive or a D drive, I will not know each file is being used for what purpose. Okay, but the
Okay.
effective way of doing this is, if I can go for resource groups, now I'm going for resource groups, and if I can see there are multiple resource groups now, and if I select any resource group now, one of them, then I will be able to see a list of all the resources which belong to that resource group only. So I will know that these are all related with each other. Okay.
Okay.
Hope I have answered your question.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So to put it in a nutshell, I wanted to bring one very important part to your notice. Number one, what exactly is Azure Resource Manager? Azure Resource Manager becomes the core of your Azure services, which means whether you are using a portal to access some resource or to deploy some resource, or whether you are using a command line interface or a PowerShell, none of these tools will be able to directly access the any of the resources, but they have to do through this Azure Resource Manager. And this Azure Resource Manager also has one more connectivity with it, which is called as authentication. Okay, so let me put it this way, there is also a connectivity to authentication. This is a very important point to remember. What I mean by that is, suppose you are a developer and you want to access a specific VM. So when you log in to access that particular VM, the request to access that VM does not go directly, but rather it comes to the Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager then verifies your identity through this authentication that has been done. And through the identity, security identifier, as we call it, SID, the Azure Resource Manager determines your overall privileges to access that VM virtual machine. And if the privileges are sufficient for you to access that VM, then you will get a go ahead, and then you will be able to connect as a resource as a developer to that particular VM with some limited privileges. On the other hand, let's say you are an IT administrator and you want to manage a VM. Maybe you would like to upgrade that VM hard disk size from some gigabytes to some other higher level. You want to increase it. So you want to access that VM. When you connect to the same VM, and it has to go to the again Azure Resource Manager, and Azure Resource Manager again confirms your security identifier and sees whether you have sufficient privileges to manage that particular VM. And if you have, because you are an IT head or an administrator, then you will have all the administrative privileges, of course, and then you will be able to access it. Okay. So one of my very important topics that I wanted to highlight here is about the ARM. Okay. Apart from that, once you want to set up a company on cloud, one question that comes to your mind, if I have to organize all my resources, what is the mechanism to do that? And how I'm going to implement my security policies, all my governances, and all those things. The best way you can do it is through a hierarchical manner. So first of all, you go and work with the management group. Under the management group, you have one or more subscriptions. Each subscription can have one or more resource groups, and then you have resources. So taking back to your portal environment, there is an option which you see here, cost management and billing. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you click on that, it is going to take you to another blade where you have a variety of options on your left side that includes billing accounts, cost management, management groups. This is what I was talking about, the management groups. Okay. So now perhaps you can start your organization of your cloud resources by starting with the management groups and then adding a new management group here. And you can see how the subscription automatically appears under the management group now. And the subscription appears with its own ID. And what is my role towards this subscription? I have a contributor role, and I'll be talking about the various roles under role-based access control in my next session. Okay. So yeah, you can start with the adding of the management groups, and under that you can plan your subscriptions, and then of course you can start planning your resource groups, and then finally organizing these resources. So you have now a rough blueprint about how you can start off your cloud administration, and what is the best methodology to do that. You need to really plan out with your IT people. You may have to go back to your drawing boards and do a little bit of pen paper pencil designing. What is the most effective solution? And once you have a proper blueprint ready, then you can start actually implementing this very, very effectively and then governing. Any questions so far? Okay. So I see no questions coming from here. So now, apart from the GUI platform, which we saw as the portal that you can see on your screens, I'll just close this blade. You can also see, very high level services which are available to you easily, starting from virtual machines. And these virtual machines basically come under what are called as infrastructure as a service. Just a minute, please. So you can see virtual machines are basically coming under infrastructure as a service. All compute services will come under it. And you can see something like app services. You can also see app services are basically a platform as a service offering from Microsoft. So whenever you are going for app services, you do not have to worry about and you have absolutely no access to the operating system levels. Same thing if you see for the function apps also. When you are looking for function apps, this is also a platform as a service offering where you need to basically focus on how your applications can be running on a distributed environment. It means part of your application will be running on front end servers, and part of your code, application code, may be running on a back end server. And basically you will have absolutely no access to the operating system or which VM this operating system is running on. You only have to focus on the coding part of it. So both app services, there is a lot of difference between app services, which is a platform as a service, and function apps, which are also platform as a service, but there is a great significant difference between them. Excuse me. But I will talk about these things at a later stages in our discussions. Okay. I'm just showing you some of the high level services which are available, which are coming under various categories like IaaS or PaaS. Apart from that, you can also have a mechanism where you can, go for a cloud shell, which is basically an extension of Windows PowerShell. Okay. So you can see that there is a type of environment which is being opened up for you whenever you select the Cloud Shell platform. And this is basically is going to provide you with a platform where you can enter your commands, administrative commands to deploy, manage, and secure your resources. Okay. If you are thinking of uh, CLI cloud, that is a command line interface, CLI has to be installed as a separate package on your local system, which means if you want to manage all the cloud resources using CLI platform, then you need to download a CLI package by going into your Azure, or by going into a separate browser page, and here you can type CLI, or you can just say Azure CLI download. If you see, as I'm telling you, I'm repeating this part. If you want to manage your cloud resources using command line interface, then you need to install CLI as a separate module, as a separate package. It is not built in. Okay. However, PowerShell is basically built in. So that means you need to just click on this Cloud Shell and you are going to switch over to a command line environment, which is a cross-platform environment. Cross-platform in the sense you can work on both Windows prompt as well as Linux prompt. Okay. Any questions here? So coming back to your cloud environment, you can see that if I click on this Azure CLI, if I open this particular screen, Then I will be going through a guided environment where I can decide whether to install the CLI package of this version on Windows or on Mac OS, or as a cross platform for Windows and Linux, which is called as a WSL kind of a CLI. So if I decide to install on my Windows platform, you can see that you are automatically taken to a download the MSI installer windows over here. And if you click on this one, the downloading will begin. Maybe about 48 MB of package will be downloaded. You just need to double click that exe file, and then the wizard will the wizard which is going to open is going to guide you through the entire simple installation process. And once you are done, then you can open up your Windows command prompt like this. You can just go to your command prompt cmd, and you can type the commands like az login if you want to log into your Azure platform, right? So you can see that the moment I do that, let's see what this command is going to do. Az basically is a command. All command have a prefixes with az. See, I'm automatically routed to a Azure login environment. And from here, if I log in successfully, for example, if I click on this, and you can see that I've already logged into my Azure, and I can close this window now. Okay. And now if I go to my command prompt, you can see that some additional information is already provided by Microsoft, saying that your currently cloud name is Azure Cloud. This is my subscription in which I have logged in. I told you account is always related with a subscription. And the type of subscription is demo pay as you go, which I have already shown you in the portal. And then you can see what is the name of the tenancy and a user. Now you can do any other activity, like you can start creating your Azure resource groups by typing the az command and starting with that. If I want to log out, you can just say az logout, and then you are out of this particular cloud environment. See, you have logged out now. So this is basically the CLI. Now this has been possible because I've already installed, downloaded and installed my CLI installer. That is the reason why command prompt is taking az commands. If I did not install this installer, if I type az login, you will get an error message saying that Microsoft DOS does not recognize this az command because it doesn't include that module actually. So any other questions you have? Okay, so I see that there are no questions coming from you. If that is the case, then I will wind up this session right now. And if everything goes well, in our day after tomorrow session, tomorrow is a holiday because of the festival, and in the day after tomorrow session, we will take our discussion further and do little more deep diving into the fundamentals of Azure. So thank you for your time, and have a great,
Thank you.
and have a great festival. Thank you.
Right.